name's Dennis Feeney. I'm going to turn off that sign. And I'm a professor of Latin in the Department of Classics. And I'm the coordinator for the sequence this year. That means that I teach in the fall and in the spring, just finishing. And I'm the only faculty member who does teach all the way through the course. And with me today is Professor Muli Vidas from the Department of Religion and the Program of Judaic Studies. And he's going to be the coordinator next year. So if you join the course, then you'll be working with him all through the fall and also all through the spring. Also with us, we have 6 students who are either veterans of the course who've taken it in previous years, and we have 2 who are taking the course at the moment. So Sam Bisno and Elizabeth Poku are taking the course now, and we've got Jess Lee, Julian Alam, Mika Hyman, and Anna Allport, who've taken it, I don't know, last year or the year before. So everyone will be ready to answer your questions. Also with us, of course, is Stephanie Lewandowski, who's the program manager for Humanistic Studies. And if you join the course, she'll be a very important person in your life. She makes the whole thing happen. So we're here to answer any questions you may have about the course, and we're here to persuade you that your lives will be intolerably impoverished if you don't decide to take the Western Humanities sequence. Now, the official title of the course, I want to get this right, is Interdisciplinary Approaches to Western Culture, History, Philosophy, Religion, Literature, and the Arts. And the course does exactly what it says on the tin. It covers all of those different disciplines and sets them in dialogue with each other. Most importantly, we cover a really long space of time. We go from Homer to Dante in the fall, we go from Petrarch up to this semester, we're going to Toni Morrison in the spring. And so we're going to track that long conversation, and we're going to see how all of these different disciplines interact with each other. We don't study them in isolation. So we see how the visual arts speak to literature. We see how philosophy and religion talk to each other. And that's really the key element of the whole course. The faculty come from all different departments, and we all go to the lectures together. And of course, this coming year, we really will be going to lectures together, which is an amazing thought after what we've been through and what you've been through in high school as well. So there's 3 lectures a week. We all attend each other's lectures. And so the faculty really learn and grow in this course as well, hearing these amazing lectures from our colleagues and finding out how they look at things. So I think of the course as being a really liberating and empowering course. You come away from it with a roadmap and a toolkit. You're able to place people and events within this 2,800-year perspective. That's your roadmap. And you have a toolkit. You learn how to think like a philosopher. You learn how to think like a professor of religion. You learn how to think like an art historian. So it's an amazing experience, and one that, you know, the other students will be able to talk to you about in a really personal way. First, though, I want to hand over to Professor Vidas, who's going to be the coordinator next year, and again, the person with whom you'll be working closely all through the year if you join the course. Muli, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I think it's great to see everybody, or see at least your names. And thanks to Professor Finney for this introduction. I don't have a lot more to say. I think what he said was, and I've now having been to Professor Feeney's lectures throughout the course, I can tell you that there's always like a pithy and precise description of what's going on, and that was also true of this course, of the description of the course. I really want to add just perhaps a little bit more about the teaching staff, the particular teaching staff for next year, and who will be teaching you, and how I think that teaching staff also reflects trends in how the course is changing a little bit, even if it's staying within very much the foundational framework of it. So we have next year, one particular addition that's interesting is John Paleri, who is a Pulitzer Prize winner, novelist, and who was really interested in teaching several of the authors that we teach in the class, Ovid and Dante. And part of the idea here is that both Jampa as a novelist, but also I think our idea is like conveying to the students is that we want to think of this as something that inspires further creation. So how does your creativity and whether you're in art or thinking, how do you place yourself in a tradition like this, right? And the idea is that even though we're studying, especially in the fall semester, some very, very old texts, that this tradition is also very much alive. Also, we have next year, as an addition, is Barbara Graziosi, who's a world-renowned Homer expert, but also, again, a poet on her own right? So there's again, this, in the fall, I think we have one addition to the course we've never taught before is Zayed Chowdhury from the English department, who is an expert in post-colonial theory. And that gets me to this question of we are teaching a course that is on the one hand, it's a power that it's very traditional, right? And that it has been that the kind of syllabus that we're teaching has been around for a long time, but it also comes with shortcoming because that syllabus has been associated with different kinds of exclusion, racial exclusion, ethnic exclusion, religious exclusion. And we want to think about that critically, but again, also we want to make clear that this very critique is part of the tradition that we are studying. It's not something separate from it, but there's something that grows out of it. And so by having an expert in post-colonial theory and somebody who kind of criticizes the formation of the Western tradition being part of the course, our idea is to convey that. And we also have in both semesters next year we have art historians, which is always very cool because I think as students who've been taking the class can tell you the idea of learning how to think like an art historian, learning how to see a painting or a sculpture, and be able to describe it in words, that's a very empowering experience. We have in the fall semester, we have Beatrice Kitzinger, who's a professor of medieval art, and then in the spring, we have Carolina Mangone, who's an expert in Italian Renaissance art. And I can tell you about Carolina, especially because Hume has the Humanities sequence has sometimes does a Rome trip. Hopefully we'll resume that when things resume. And Carolina and I led this Rome trip together and going through the Roman art galleries with Carolina, and suddenly it all makes sense. All the statues and the art just speaks to you, and she can do that in the classroom as well. It's just your mind just changes. You can hear your mind growing as she speaks, and I think you'll feel that as well. And to go back to what Professor Feeney was saying, that is the transformative function of this class is you're learning how to think, but you're also getting familiar with, again, some of the most exciting ideas, texts, stories that were created in this tradition. So that's my pitch to you, and specifically about next year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Gosh, hearing about next year makes me so excited and nostalgic. I'm Mika. I took the course 2018 to 2019. It seems like a long time ago, but I'm still involved in the sequence as a mentor, and I help run the mentoring program at the moment, although that's now with Jess, which is super exciting. And I guess like the fact that kind of, still so enthusiastic and excited about Hume goes to show kind of how big an impact this course has had on my life at Princeton. It is without a doubt probably the most significant decision that I made when I came to Princeton. It was actually a big reason as to why I decided to come. I remember hearing about it, and I thought how cool that you could have this opportunity to study with 11 incredible professors, and basically spend your first year of college going from Homer through to, well, in my case, I think we did up to Aimé Césaire, and that was kind of just such a thrilling idea. And since taking the sequence has actually ended up kind of shaping a lot of my experiences at Princeton. I ended up majoring in comparative literature because I was so inspired by the interdisciplinary approaches that the sequence takes. So as Professor Feeney and Professor Vidas both touched on, you are approaching texts from all different disciplines, and you're approaching them in different ways, and you're constantly returning to them throughout the course. You'll study Plato in the first semester, and he probably won't leave your conversations in the second semester. But likewise, kind of themes that you'll pick up in that first semester about, okay, you know, what are women doing at the moment? You will then expand on in the second semester. And that is such an incredible opportunity. I think the main thing I really want to speak about is what it's like 2 years on, what the community is like. The people that I took the humanities sequence with, you sit next to these people pretty much every day, or, you know, 3 times a week during the week in Pine Hall, East Pine, and they are the people that you spend the majority of your class time with, because you're taking half your classes with them, so you get to know them well, and they're such a strong community. And they're still the people that, you know, course selection comes about, and you text someone from the Hume sequence from your year, and you go, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be fun to take this course together? And, you know, they crop up all over the place, and that's fantastic. And they're the people that inspire you, and they provoke you, and it's so special. And then in terms of the professors, I grabbed coffee the other week, socially distanced, with Professor Yelena Baraz, who taught me my freshman fall. She hasn't taught me in any other courses, but we've stayed in touch since that freshman fall. She inspired me to take Latin. Then with Professor Feeney, my sophomore year, which I came into Princeton being like, I never want to go near Latin again. And lo and behold, I ended up taking it, much to my excitement and enthusiasm. So these are the professors that you get to know, are really people that you turn to. Something that you do at Princeton is independent work. You will write, depending on your major, 1 or 2 junior papers and your thesis. Both of my junior paper advisors are people who've taught the Hume sequence. I met Professor Reeves, who taught the Hume sequence this past year, because she was someone who told me to take the sequence, and then she ended up advising my junior paper. And Professor Alexander Nehamas, who taught me in the spring of my freshman year, is currently advising my junior paper. And that was after he really inspired me to take another look at philosophy, which I'd been really intimidated by before taking the Hume sequence. So I really cannot emphasize how special and important this sequence is. It's something that will always stay with me, and I can confidently say that 2 years on, that I think about it pretty much every day, either text or the people that I've met through it. And any questions that you have, I'm more than happy to answer them. And with that, I will pass it off to the lovely Jess Lee, who will offer some thoughts.
Hi, everyone, and congrats on your acceptances to Princeton. My name is Jess, and I'm a sophomore, newly declared history major from Illinois. And yeah, I'm also so excited to help lead the mentoring program next year, and I'm very grateful to continue to be a part of this special community. So when I was first coming into Princeton, I had little prior knowledge of the classics and hadn't really read any of these big seminal works of Western literature or philosophy in high school. And so as much as it was intimidating to enter the Hume sequence, after hearing about it, it was also really exciting. However, I quickly realized that this course wasn't just about finally getting to engage with these big names you've heard about like all your life. I recognized that a really crucial point of the course was to kind of learn how these thinkers really built on each other's ideas and drew inspiration from their intellectual predecessors. And I found that aspect really wonderful and exciting about the class. In precept each week, it was always so exciting to kind of draw connections between what we had read that week and what we had already covered on the syllabus. And so I'd say that following Hume, I was really well equipped with some of my more analytical skills, but also especially an ability to synthesize different works together and kind of highlight the bridges or the interconnectedness between different thinkers. And so, for example, in my history classes, I've written papers connecting different time periods or different written works by different figures. And I think I owe a big thanks to Hume for helping to kind of prime this sort of thinking for me. But I'd say that one of the best things I gained from the sequence my freshman year was, one, the close bonds I formed with all of my professors, which I find pretty rare, I guess, for a lot of freshmen in their classes. I think that learning how experts from all of these different disciplines approached the texts on our syllabus was really incredible, and the opportunity to get to know them better through Wednesday lunches and through office hours was also so wonderful. I'd say that I also made some of my closest friends at Princeton from Hume, and I think I felt a really great sense of support and community from all of the other students. Like Mika mentioned, you are spending a lot of time with one another in lectures and precept, but you also have the Hume lunches, which I'm praying will return next year. Then also the symposia for reviewing papers and other things too. And there's truly a wonderful support system that made me feel really comfortable and at home at Princeton in general. And yeah, I hope you all give the Humanities sequence a chance. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm a current freshman and a current student in the Humanities sequence. I'm also a prospective economics major. So I'll speak a little bit about like how I heard about the sequence. It's actually quite a funny story in my opinion. It was the day of my Princeton interview, and I was trying to prepare, and I was looking up different things about Princeton, and for some reason stumbled on the Humanities Studies website and heard about the sequence, watched all the videos on the website, went through the Q&As, all the questions. Then I went to my interview and just like told my interviewer all about the sequence. She had no idea what it was, but I was just talking about it the whole time. And so, when I got into Princeton, I was so happy, and I immediately signed up for the course. I filled up the form on the website like right away. And so I had never taken any classics classes or Greek or Latin. I kind of ignored those classes when I was in high school, and I really wanted to take this class as more of like a gateway into that world and to learn more. And I'm really, really grateful that I did, because I feel like this has been the best place to do so. Like Jess just said, like it's not just about engaging with those texts and hearing about those big names. It's also kind of building the skills to be able to analyze these texts, as well as introducing you to a whole myriad of disciplines. So personally, I've gotten the opportunity to be introduced to like religion, music, political theory, philosophy, and other disciplines all through the works that we're encountering. And you really just see how the authors in their work, and even the artists, like there's little echoes of different people. Like we're always talking about Aristotle, and we're always talking about Plato, but we also kind of talk about Sappho, who I have her book right here. She's like one of my favorite poets that we read the first semester. As you can see, have a lot of, pages bookmarked, because I just love going back through the poems, and we bring her up, I feel like, every other precept, just to see how she kind of comes up in the text that we're reading now and in some of the art that we're looking at. So I really would like to say that it is interdisciplinary, and you really get to feel the full benefit of the class by taking both parts of the sequence. I also would just like to say that I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to write the types of papers that we write. So I'm not sure how familiar everyone else is with this, but this semester and last semester, we got the chance to write 4 papers where we choose a passage out of one of the works that we read, and then really just go in and analyze it and kind of go through it and kind of say like what the author is doing there, why this is important for the work. And it's really an essay that I've never written before. It's akin to like a close reading essay, if anyone's like familiar with that, but I've really liked the chance to hone in on my like critical thinking skills and my analytical skills through that type of paper. And it's been quite a blast to kind of dig into all the different passages in like all the works that I'm really, really interested in. And I would say that the community aspect of the Hume sequence, like Jess and Mika have both mentioned, have definitely been a formative part of my experience. I've really loved all the professors that I've had throughout the sequence, especially Professor Feeney, who's here on the call right now. And I've spoken to him a lot in office hours. Also, I've had him as a grader. And I really just would like encourage you all to go to office hours if you do end up taking the sequence, because it's really just such a pleasure and a wonderful opportunity that we have to hear from all these experts and kind of, pick at their brain and see how they see these texts and what connections they see. And then sometimes you'll be surprised, but you'll end up showing them novel views of looking at the text. And it's really nice once you hear some experts say, oh, I've never thought of it that way. And you feel yourself kind of making your contributions to this tradition. And the last thing I'll definitely say is that even though we've been over Zoom this whole year, I've gotten the chance to meet different people in my classes, and I've really, really cherished that. And we loved, there's a group of us that we kind of talk sometimes, and we chat about the text and see ways it kind of fits into our lives right now. And also, because we love these texts so much, sometimes we critique them a little bit and say, what voices aren't being included and what we would do to kind of change that, and what other authors kind of add on to their messages and allow for that like extension and critique of their work. So all in all, it's been a really amazing experience. And now I'm going to pass it off to Anna.
Hey everybody, first of all, everyone, welcome. Congratulations on getting into Princeton. We're so excited to welcome you into the family. And I'm so glad that you're interested in the Hume sequence. Taking Hume was easily the best academic decision that I made at Princeton. So I'm Anna, I'm a sophomore. So I took Hume last year, and I created my own major in theater and performance studies. And I'm a mentor for Hume this year and a symposiarch next year. So I'm going to give you a little bit about why I decided to take the course. Then I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you should take the course. And then I'm going to entice you with a little passage at the end. So I first heard about Hume in one of the flyers that Princeton sends home with your admissions packet. And I was interested because it advertised such a wide range of knowledge in just one college course. And I decided to take it because what I really wanted out of my college experience was to build a solid foundation of cultural, political, philosophical literacy that I could then take for the rest of my studies and really the rest of my life. And Hume did that and so much more. I learned so much about what literary analysis looks like in college and got to practice it, so I felt very comfortable writing a college paper right off the bat in the middle of my freshman year. I fell in love with our readings, and they gave me a new vocabulary to think about my other classes and my perspectives on current issues. I really liked that even though the course studies a selection of canonical texts, we really read a variety of different forms of writing. We read poetry, journalism, memoirs, fiction, so there's really something for everyone. And one of the major things that I think is so excellent about Hume is that it combines the theoretical rigor of a philosophy class with the text-based analysis of a literature class. And that's a unique perspective at Princeton that not a lot of courses have, which I think is very cool. So why should you take this course? 5 reasons. Number 1, you will become infinitely more well-read in such a short period of time. And as I've said, not only is this helpful as a foundation for your other classes and the rest of your time at Princeton, but if you're interested in literature and you love to learn, it's a nice feeling to have your literary vocabulary expand in this way and be able to talk about such a wide range of texts. I found that some of the best conversations I've had on campus were in the dorms, late nights, talking about texts that we read in Hume. So it's great for conversations too. Reason number 2, and I can't stress this point enough, the course is co-taught by 6 incredible professors at once each semester. And this is so rare at Princeton, really in a college environment in general. And not only do you get a chance to learn from such stellar minds and listen to their research and wisdom in lectures, but you get to make really personal connections with them. So by the end of the year, you have 11 incredible professors that you know on a one-on-one basis as a freshman. And that is really setting you up for really fruitful mentorship in all 4 years of your college experience. Number 3, this course has a large syllabus and it's a big workload. And I agree, you should take it if you're passionate about the material and excited about the idea of devoting your time to deep reading. But after taking the Hume sequence, the course load of all of your other semesters will feel so manageable. And it's because you get the chance to learn how to prioritize your time and assignments in college right from the get-go in freshman year. And don't underestimate this, because this is a major time management practice that will really help you out later on. Reason number 4, as people have been saying, there are some really important conversations happening right now about the canon and its relationship to systems of oppression, white supremacy, gender dynamics, among others. And they're questions that'll come up in this course and in faculty and student discussions about its curriculum too, as Professor Vitas mentioned. And what I'll say is that I think studying the canon enables you to have informed conversations about its influence. And so taking this course can equip you with the knowledge that will fuel discussions about the canon's expansion and inclusion. And reason number 5 why you should take Hume is for the community, as a lot of other people have been saying. As a freshman, it's always an adjustment period, finding and making friends, figuring out how to talk to in the halls. You all know with the past year of virtual school. And in the Hume sequence, since you're all undertaking this intensive course together, bonding happens really quickly. And in your precept, your reading discussion group, you become really close. It's lots of fun. I was skeptical at the beginning of how possible it was to become really tight friends with people just from a class. But the people that I met in Hume continue to be some of my closest friends on campus. And it's amazing to be able to have and come back to a group of what feels like your people, your Hume people, while taking the class and afterwards throughout your 4 years. So I'm going to read you a passage now from a really beautiful book that we read in Hume. It's from Dante's Paradiso, near the end, and he's describing Beatrice. He says, "Compelled by seeing nothing and by love, I turned my eyes to gaze on Beatrice. If all things said of her up to this point were gathered in a single hymn of praise, it would be paltry matched to what is due. The beauty that I saw transcends all thought of beauty, and I must believe that only its maker may savor it all. I declare myself defeated at this point more than any poet, whether comic or tragic, was ever thwarted by a topic in his theme. For like sunlight striking on the weakest eyes, the memory of the sweetness of that smile deprives me of my mental powers. From the first day when in this life I saw her face until my vision of her now, pursuit of her in song has never been cut off. But now I must desist in my pursuit, no longer following her beauty in my verse, as every artist, having reached his limit, must. Thus I leave her to more glorious trumpeting than that of my own music, as laboring on, I bring my difficult subject toward its close. With the voice and bearing of a guide who has discharged his duty, she began. We have issued from the largest body to the heaven of light, light intellectual, full of love, love of true good, full of joy, joy that surpasses every sweetness. And I think that this light intellectual of good, joy, sweetness is a light that I found in Hume. So I hope all of you would feel the same. If you have any questions about Hume or Princeton in general, please Zoom DM me in the chat. I'd love to do so. And I'm sure that a lot of our panelists too would be happy to help out. So with that, I'll pass it on to Sam.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here today. My name's Sam. Like Elizabeth, I'm a student in the sequence right now, so I'll be wrapping up in just a few weeks. And I found out about the sequence maybe a week before signing up for classes in the summer, so you guys are way ahead of me. And I came from a public school in Pittsburgh, didn't have any experience with the classics whatsoever, really didn't know what I was getting into, and encountered a reputation of Hume that it was, kind of an insurmountable amount of work, that it was going to be completely overwhelming. So I think one thing that I'd like to do is just, if any of you are feeling that or have heard that reputation, assuage that a little bit. I think Hume really boils down to 3 pretty simple things. And if you like these things, you're going to like Hume, which is you read, you write, and you talk. And if you enjoy doing those things, that's basically all you're going to do in the sequence. You're going to spend a lot of time, sitting in the library, just enjoying texts, making notes of things you find interesting, talking to people who also enjoy these texts just as much as you do, and then doing really deep dives into the text like Elizabeth described. And I think those deep dives are kind of unlike any other essay you'd write in a lot of other classes you'd be taking maybe in your first year at Princeton. So the other thing that I wanted to just sort of emphasize about Hume is that, to me, like, the conversation really never stops. And I think that's what separates Hume from most classes, is you're going to go to lecture and you're going to consume the material, and then you're going to have your precept and you're going to talk about it, and probably you're not going to do much more than that, or at least in my experience in an all virtual setting, that's kind of where the buck stops with most classes. But with Hume, I mean, you're just always talking about these texts. So last semester when we were all virtual off campus, I would consistently be staying after precept had ended to talk with other people in my precept to things we didn't get to in the 50-minute segment. When I came to campus this semester, even though we're still virtual, it was people from Hume who I was most excited to meet up with and get to know. And those people have become some of my closest friends since I've been here. My precept this semester like routinely goes and gets pizza, socially distanced. So I think that there's like a real community in Hume. And that extends to the professors as well. I mean, these are world-renowned professors who want to be teaching first years and second years the humanities sequence. And so they're excited to hear your ideas. They're not, you know, I mean, of course, they're going to lecture at you, but they also want to engage in conversation with you. And that means that the conversation extends beyond class. So last semester, there was a program organized by one of the professors of that semester, and then Professor Kitzinger, who you'll have organized what they called a Hume social justice discussion that was every Thursday. And that was about bringing these texts to issues that we're facing today in contemporary society, but then also using the issues that we're facing today in contemporary society to look back on these texts and reflect on them. This semester, the Hume professors have let students organize panels on the treatment of women in texts and things like that. So the professors really want to make this experience about you, and I think that also separates Hume. So the last thing I'll do is I'll just read you a quick passage, slightly different note than Dante, but this is from Don Quixote. So if you're not familiar with the story of Don Quixote, this is about a nobleman who reads a lot of chivalristic romance and convinces himself he wants to be a knight errant. So here he is confronting a peasant who has been whipping his farmhand. "You dare to say he lies in my presence, base varlet," said Don Quixote. "By the sun that shines down on us, I am ready to run you through with this lance. Pay him now without another word. If you do not, by the God who rules us, I shall exterminate and annihilate you here and now. Untie him immediately." The peasant lowered his head, and without responding, he untied his servant. And Don Quixote asked the boy how much his master owed him. He said wages for 9 months at 7 reales a month. Don Quixote calculated the sum and found that it amounted to 73 reales. And he told the peasant to take that amount from his purse unless he wanted to die on their account. So when I read this passage, I was like, okay, that's a cool passage. Here we have typical Don Quixote, using this lofty language, convinced that he's a knight errant. Then I did some quick math and I realized that it's not 73 reales a month, it's 63 reales a month, that Don Quixote has done the math wrong. And here we see Cervantes sort of winking at us, showing us Don Quixote's, character. He wants to be a knight errant, but he can't even count. And I think it's these small details that you encounter in the texts that you get in Hume that you wouldn't get from reading the Wikipedia article about Don Quixote. So Hume really provides you the opportunity to dive deep into these texts and to engage with the authors, unlike you'll be able to in any other setting. So with that, I'll pass it off to Julian.
Hi, I'm Julian. I'm also a sophomore. Also, I'm an English major, getting certificates in theater, humanistic studies, classics, and music theater. Also class of 2023 with Jess and Anna. So we've gone through it all together. We're the year who had the mix because we got mostly in person, but then kind of our last 6 or 7 weeks were all online. So we've really seen it all. But I just want to echo so far what everyone has said. I mean, Hume, as you can probably already tell, is such a special and unique community. Like Mika said, it was a huge reason for me that I also ended up wanting to come to Princeton, because other schools have things that are similar, but they're really, honestly, in my experience with my friends who are at other schools, there's not any other Hume equivalent that is really like this one. So I first want to talk a little bit about like relationships that people have already kind of talked about, but specifically the professors. I mean, that is such a special experience. Like Sam said, imagine having Pulitzer Prize winning authors wanting to teach freshmen. Like, you don't get that anywhere else. And that is a truly special experience. And not only just getting to interact with them, but getting to get close to them. Like I saw Professor Baraz, who we keep citing because she's incredible. They're all incredible. But I saw her today, literally at Small World, ran into her and had a lovely conversation. And those are just relationships like with the students that continue to grow as once you're out of this sequence. And speaking of students, I would echo what Anna was saying about the community. It truly is such a special place. I mean, Anna and I were in the same precept, and our whole year, of course we want to say we're special, but it feels like we were very close, and we really have continued to have these conversations about the texts, about the critiques, about just keeping up with each other and being friends. Like, I remember Anna and I's precept, the week when we were being sent home, we all went to Small World together and just reminisced about everything. And we were like, we're really gonna miss each other. We've spent so much time together with the professors, with each other, and it's been an emotional experience, as you can probably tell. And then another aspect of the relationships is the mentoring that has been really special for me on both sides. Like, Mika is like, the way I got to know Mika was through Hume mentoring, and she's been a dear friend ever since. And we've interacted in lots of other settings too, but like, that's where I first got to know her, and she really guided me and shepherded me through this chaotic thing that is the humanities sequence. And then now this year, having been a mentor, I was Elizabeth's mentor, and that was also such a special relationship for me, being able to like watch this incredible student go through things that I went through, but also in this completely new format, and manage all these crazy things, and once again get really close. And it's been really special for me. So it's not just within your year, but the humanities sequence, it is a great way to get to know people in your year, especially as a freshman, but also getting to know people who are older than you and actually getting close to them, and younger than you if you should continue to be a mentor or a symposiarch like some of us are now. Yeah, and then more the skills, I mean, everyone has already said this, but this perhaps is hubristic, but I think it's true. Every time you're in a class after you've taken Hume, it's evident who like the Hume students are, just because you have the skills you get are such a mastery of like language and not just like being able to recite knowledge, which is something you'll have for sure from Hume. Like, there are things in there that I'm surprised I still remember, but really your critiquing skills is what comes out of Hume, and like that, those are the things you're going to be using forever. And then Hume, obviously everyone's been saying, it's going through quite a bit of change, as it should in so many ways. Like Professor Vida said, there is an aspect of Hume that is about finding yourself in these texts and seeing where you fit into the canon, but at the same time of analyzing these texts really critically. And that's what the students bring to class. Like Sam was talking about the third part, he was like, we talk, like your conversations and what you bring is the sequence as well. Like, it is the professors, it is the text, but it's your thoughts just as much as anything else. And of course, we're trying to introduce all kinds of new programming, both from the students, from the symposiarchs, from the professors. And coming out of the pandemic, we're hoping, I mean, no matter what, things are going to change. So it's a time to like really reassess what's been going on, how we've been doing things, and how we shouldn't be doing things. Yeah. Oh, wait, I guess I'll read my short quote quickly, and then, yeah, then we can move on. So mine is from one of my favorite texts that I actually read again last semester in a class with Professor Baraz and Professor Lahiri, who will be teaching next semester, who's the best ever, both of them. This is from Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. Beauty, the world seemed to say. And as if to prove it scientifically, wherever he looked at the houses, at the railings, at the antelope stretching over the palings, beauty sprang instantly. To watch a leaf quivering in the rush of air was an exquisite joy, and the sun spotting now the leaf, now that in mockery dazzling it with soft gold in pure good temper, and now again some tinkling chime divinely on the grass stalks, all of this, calm and reasonable as it was, made out of ordinary things as it was the truth now. Beauty was the truth now. Beauty was everywhere. And I love that quote because that's what you get from Hume. You get this ability to just read things, both images, texts, music, so carefully, find the beauty in them, find the things you want to talk about. Yeah, so take Hume. I think I'm the last to speak.
So we have an important question from Adam Sanders. I think this is, oh, that's Adam. Hi, Adam. Yeah, people generally do take 4 courses in their first semester. Some people take 5. But I think the question about the concentration is obviously an important one, but one that I think the students could answer better than I can, because they've had to navigate their way through that labyrinth. Would one of you like to pick it up about how you make those choices and what's blocked out? Yeah, Julia?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, well, first, if you're thinking about any kind of humanities major, pretty much all of them will take the humanities sequence as some sort of prerequisite for the major. Even if it doesn't say so on the website, like I'm an English major and it doesn't like say that on the website, but it does cover a bunch of the distribution requirements and prerequisites for, I think, most humanities majors. And then even if you're not a humanities major, a benefit of the Hume sequence is that it covers a lot of the distribution requirements that every student has to fulfill. So the fall is a LA, a literature and the arts, and an HA, a history analysis. I don't know what the A stands for.
Historical analysis.
Historical analysis. Thank you, Professor Pias. And then the spring is another LA and also epistemology and cognition, which, by the way, is kind of a weird one to come by. So it's actually very useful that it's kind of embedded in there. So all this to say, no, it does not make it hard. We had a friend in our precept who is an astrophysics major. She just declared, I mean, she's thriving. It doesn't get in the way at all. If anything, it helps, like, distribution wise, and if you're a humanities major, it'll cover any kind of requirements, really.
Oh wait, sorry, I just have one clarifying question. So you take during the fall semester and spring semester, you would take 3 other classes besides Hume as well?
Just 2.
Just 2? Okay.
Because Hume counts for 2, and then most people take 2 other classes.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Though we would say some people do take 5, I will say. So some people do take maybe like in the spring semester, we have some people who do that, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I will say. This is not, officially sanctioned advice, but I did take 5 classes both in the fall and in the spring with Hume. So it is possible, although, you'd have to look at your extracurriculars and everything. But yeah, I would just echo what Julian said in terms of everything about fitting it in with your major. And also Hume really helps you explore other major possibilities. It opened up a really lot of wonderful paths of study for me when I took the course. So I would definitely recommend it, if not for the kind of taking alongside, for opening up those possibilities.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to jump in right afterwards, just because the next question that a few people DM'd me about ties perfectly onto this question, which is, do STEM majors take the humanities sequence? The answer is yes. It is possible to be a STEM major and take Hume. There are people who do it every year. Julian just gave the example of someone who's doing astrophysics now. There are also plenty of people who are pre-med and end up doing Hume. In my year, someone ended up doing maths. So, if you are, a lot of actually, because it fills your distribution requirements, so at Princeton you have to take an HA, the historical analysis, to literature and the arts, and also an epistemology and cognition requirement. Hume fills all of that. So for some people who really want to kind of fill those requirements, but also take this incredible course, like it's such an amazing way to fill those requirements, Hume is a great option. So that's a brief answer to that question. And we can move on to Anna's question. How does the classics aspect of the course fit in? And one of our panelists can take that away.
Yes, I'm the classics professor, so I could say something about that. I mean, the reading, and there are 12 weeks, so the reading right down into the 7th week is going to be authors and objects and traditions which are conventionally housed in the classics department, so Homer and Thucydides and Virgil and Ovid. But, we're reading plenty of authors who are perfectly at home in other departments as well, like Plato and Aristotle, and it's taken really seriously. And then the Christian Revolution comes along, and we studied the Hebrew Bible, we studied the Christian Revolution, and then we're in a different world. So just over half the course in the full semester is what you might call classics. But by the time you get to the end of the fall semester, it doesn't feel as if you've just been studying classics. And one of the things that you find out in the spring in particular is, everyone is going back to those classical texts all the time in order to motivate their conversations. I mean, Thomas Hobbes and Milton and Shakespeare, these people cannot be properly understood without the background that you bring to them from the fall semester. But it's really important to pick up what Anna says there. It's not necessary to know anything about classics to take the Hume sequence. It's a very, very important to stress that. And, you know, both Elizabeth and Jess said that that was their position coming in. And, you know, we have people like them who have make a fantastic success of the course, and they've never opened Homer in their lives. So it can be done. It's done every year. It's not a classics course. It's a humanities sequence. And this is spoken by someone who likes classics. You know, I'm a classics professor. Professor Vidas, would you maybe like to pick up Daniel's question about the curriculum changing, because you're in charge of the curriculum next year?
Yeah, I mean, so I will say, you know, just first in general, in terms of how the curriculum changes, I mean, there are things that are staple. So we're always going to have Homer and Plato. We're always going to have the Bible. In the modern period, I think we're always going to have, you know, say Montaigne or Milton, right? But there are also things that change. We will be introducing some changes for next year. That we don't quite have the full list yet. I'm sorry, but if you want to email me, maybe in a couple of weeks, we might have something for you. We're still working on it. And if there's a specific question you have about a specific author, I can tell you where our thinking is right now with respect to that.
As the students have been stressing, this is a really dialogic course. And, you know, a lot of, I mean, it's now 25 years old, I think, Stephanie. You have the institutional memory, 25, 26 years old now, the course. It's changed a lot since it was first put on in all kinds of ways. And, you know, those changes have taken place largely because of continual conversation among the faculty, continual conversation among the students, and we've been responding in all kinds of ways. It's interesting for me to think about how, you know, I taught the spring semester last year and I taught it again this year, but just to see how different my take on the authors, you know, not all my lectures have been the same authors, but the ones that have been the same, you know, just how different my take is as a result of the conversations that we had. And one of the things about a canon is you can keep the curriculum actually, in theory, completely unchanged, but the questions you ask, the way you approach them, your whole way of thinking about the relationship between these different texts and different objects changes every year. As I've seen, I've taught this course a number of times now. Every time you come back, it feels different, even if the authors in place are notionally the same. Stephanie, would you like to answer? Oh, sorry, Alexandra has a question, but Emerson's question, a formal question about reserving a seat. Would you like to answer, Emerson, on that?
Yeah. So my recommendation would be to fill it out after you've decided if you're going to come to Princeton, just because you'll get a bombardment of emails from me, and if you're not coming, you wouldn't be interested in them at that point. But yeah, I would just, you know, once you've decided, and if you're interested, then I would go ahead and fill it out then.
Alexandra's question, Muli, presumably the same summer readings as usual, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. We usually ask that, you know, students read the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid in the summer, so that they just because these are big chunks, and so that to ease off your workload in the fall semester. That's what we did this fall semester? Actually, I wasn't there this past fall semester, but yes, that's what we usually do, and I think that's sensible. You also get the fullest, and I know of students who just take advantage in the summer if they don't have something else very busy going on, take advantage of the summer and read. I always imagine them reading something very, very dark on a nice beach. But I don't know if that's what's going to happen. But yeah, so those three are the ones that we usually ask. And since you'll have the list for the fall and the summer, if you want to start ahead, you can do that.
Stephanie, another couple of questions for you, I think, from Kate and Alexandra.
Let's see. Well, the form is up, so you can fill it out at any point. If you are, and Mary had just asked and I answered, the form is not binding. You can certainly opt out, although we hope you don't. But what the form does do for you is get you onto what is essentially becomes our summer mailing list, because we have our first email going out in mid-May, and then the next one will come in mid-June, and it's pretty much throughout the whole semester we keep in touch. And we'll also most likely form mentoring groups if we can towards I would think mid-August. We're going to try to do it this year, maybe beginning of August. So that would also allow you to participate in those groups. So, like I said, we hope you stick with it, but the form is not binding. You can fill it out, as soon as you decide if you're going to come to Princeton and, you definitely have an interest in this course, then I would go ahead and fill that out. And it's on the Hume Studies website. But you can also email me if you have any questions. I have a pretty easy email address. It's Steph, STEPH @princeton.edu.
Sorry, I have done this before. What about Kate's question, Stephanie, about seats filling up? It's not going to be an issue, right?
Well, we did go to a waiting list last year. Probably only one year we didn't go to a waiting list since I've been in this job. So, but generally speaking, it doesn't fill up until maybe mid-August to late August. And then what happens is, as we get closer to classes starting, there's a little bit more fluctuation there in the beginning. And I can honestly say we've never turned anyone away. It's always worked out that we've been able to get people into the course, even if they were on the waiting list. So, but again, good to fill it out early because it gets you on that mailing list. And being on the mailing list is fun. It gets you actually excited about Princeton because you start getting emails from Stephanie kind of on a pretty regular basis with kind of, what to expect when you first, I remember when first opening up that email with the syllabus. And even if, I didn't necessarily do all the readings during the summer other than the ones that we were told to, it was, still so fun and exciting to look through that syllabus and kind of just start getting hyped about coming to Princeton. So that's also another reason to sign up early.
Anyone else?
There's a question here from Mary about how many texts they will be reading.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Sorry, Mary. How many texts? Well, I guess there are three lectures a week, and they're not always on a text, of course. Sometimes they're on music or art, but generally that's got 36 slots. It's going to be something over 30 texts, but they're not. It's not as if each one is like the Iliad or the Odyssey. I mean, sometimes, as Elizabeth said with Sappho was one of those authors who wrote in fragments, so there's hardly any Sappho. You can spend a lot of time thinking about Sappho and digging into her texts, definitely, but it's very short. So there's a lot of variation. And we do try to space it out. There are big texts coming along, and we try to intersperse them with texts that are not so mountainous and bulky. So yeah, there are excerpts from plenty of texts. We don't read all of Don Quixote. We don't read all of Montaigne, so many texts are excerpted. But this is why we ask you to read those big epics over the summer, because they really are the biggies in the fall semester. And once you've got them knocked off, then you can pace yourself throughout the fall. Similarly, for the spring semester, I guess the veterans of the course would say that Paradise Lost is the real hill to climb. So, if you can get that knocked off during the vacation before the spring semester, then that would be a great idea too. So we do our best to keep the pressure kind of constant throughout the semester without having any big troughs and mountains.
And yeah, just to quickly follow into that, there was a question about how many pages you tend to read per week. It does fluctuate, as Professor Feeney said. You'll have lectures sometimes on art, and in which case you won't be necessarily preparing any reading for that. other students correct me if I'm wrong, and Sam and Elizabeth, this is more in your fresh memory probably, but it's what, like around 300 to 400, or is that being like kind? Maybe it's more. But it's manageable, and it teaches you a lot how to read for college. Like, you know, this is, you will read a lot if you study humanities at Princeton, and the Hume sequence is a great way to learn how to read. And we have conversations about, you know, okay, so maybe it sounds stupid to say that you learn how to read, but you know, you learn how to read to write your close reading papers that we spoke about a little bit earlier. You learn how to read to prepare for a precept in which, you know, you're coming with things that you're interested in, but you're also learning how to, okay, how do I get the overall picture of this story or of this text? And so, you know, don't be intimidated by the number of pages because you will get very good at reading. Professor Vini actually just mentioned Paradise Lost. Guess a fun fact, I don't know. My year was one of the first years, I think, to read Paradise Lost in its entirety, because we were so excited to read it that we asked the professors whether, instead of doing extracts, we could instead read the whole thing. Which you know, goes to show you kind of, you get into your reading, you get excited by it. We didn't want to read extracts of Paradise Lost in that case. We actually really wanted to just read the whole thing, and so we were like, okay, you know, screw it, more reading, great, excellent. So that's something to also be excited about. It's kind of actually, it's not something to be overwhelmed by, it's something to be excited by.
Can I just exactly on what Mika said, but just emphasizing this, I've always been struck by, so I teach a lot of classes in Princeton. I've always been struck by how prepared the Hume students are in terms of the readings. So, you know, they have hundreds of pages of reading a week, right? And they do it. And I mean, you know, I think part of it is, of course, it's a self-selective group of students who likes this kind of thing. But I think, as Mika said, there's something about the community that motivates it. People love these kind of presents, and they want to share all this stuff, and they want to come prepared for it. So it's like, you know, it just kind of brings everybody up, and I think it makes the work more manageable because it's something you enjoy doing and you're excited to do, as opposed to something that you do just because you have to. And that's really the feeling you get from the students in this class, as opposed to a lot of other classes.
No, that's absolutely right. And if Elizabeth could hold up her Sappho again, you see all those sticky notes in every page. I mean, that's what everyone's texts look like. And, you know, as a professor, you've got to be on your game, because, you know, people have really, really read this. And of course, a page isn't just a page. You know, 10 pages of Aristotle for me is equivalent of 100 pages of Herodotus. I mean, you know, if you're reading Aristotle, you're going really slowly. And for some people, it'll be the other way around. Oh, okay. Congratulations, Daniel. There you go. So it's all relative, but it's doable. It's manageable. And as Professor Vidas stresses, people are really reading. They're not just skimming. I mean, they really can go back. And it's so exciting in the spring semester in particular to see people who are reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, you know, reaching all the way back into the fall semester to point out some parallel or some connection that has struck them. So the further on you go in the course, you know, the more connections you make, and you're making your own story about those connections. It's great to see the students doing this. It really is.
I guess before we start to wrap up, the students and I will all put our emails in to the chat. Please feel free to reach out to any of us. We're always happy to continue the conversation. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's here, and also take the Humanities sequence. It's such a good thing to do. It'll make your life so much better. Yeah, congratulations to all of you. And yeah, please come join our really special community. We would love to have you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
my email
much.
in there as well if you want to write to me. So really good to meet you. Professor Vidas is going to be lucky enough to meet all of you properly, some of you properly next year. I wish I were as well. Anyway, thank you for joining us, and let us know if you've got any questions. Okay, ciao. Bye, everyone. Thank you.